People have been federally indicted on more than a dozen counts of healthcare fraud related charges for billing for services that weren't provided. The alleged Medicare and Medicaid related crimes happened over the course of more than 3 years.
According to their website, Kentucky Addiction Center has 4 locations across the Bluegrass, in Paducah, London, and the 2 mentioned in these court filings in Paintsville and Winchester. The indictment says the alleged fraud occurred between October 2017 through at least January 2021. Court records say that the 2 owners of KAC, Christy Berry and Michael Bregenzer, as well as billing manager Barbie Van Hoos and Dr. Jose Alzadon, submitted bills for services that weren't medically necessary or were falsely filed under another doctor's name. Details of the alleged fraud include upbilling for more expensive services than those provided. Court documents also indicate the group dispensed Suboxone in an unauthorized way. Current employees reached out to WKYT and tell us they remember the Winchester facility being raided, and it's unclear what will happen to the facility or patients. Records show of the 4 defendants, so far only Dr. Alzadon has been arraigned. Now, part of that arraignment means he is not to prescribe any controlled substances, must give up his passport, and cannot have any contact with the other defendants. I did reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office to find out how much money may have been involved in these alleged crimes, but they said that information has not yet been made publicly available.
That group is facing a maximum of 10 years for each of the 12 healthcare fraud charges, a fine of $250,000 or a sum determined by the amount of money that was gained or lost, and then supervised release of no more than 3 years, plus restitution if it applies.